And I loved like watching him like make model aeroplanes, and he was an amazing swimmer. He taught me how to swim. He taught me how to cycle. Because sadly, I did lose my dad died when I was 17 from suicide. There was awful days where I'd be like on the dual carriageway and I was like crying my eyes out, and I'm like I should not be here.
Welcome to another episode of the Toughest Finish Line podcast with me, Jen Down. I wanted to start this week's episode with a bit of information. This week's incredible guest will be sharing a truly inspiring story, but it does contain conversations about suicide which may be upsetting for some. Katy is doing some fantastic work raising awareness of mental health, and her finish line story is one not to be missed. So, welcome to the podcast, Katy Roberts. Katy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
That's okay.
We finally got finally made it happen.
Finally, after lots happening, which we might come on to in our conversation, we finally made it, which I'm so pleased about because your story is so inspiring and really touched me. So I'm really pleased that we managed to make this happen, because you completed a huge cycling challenge of cycling around the whole coast of the UK on your own, which blows my mind, and we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail because I'm so interested in finding out how you did it and how it all went. But I want to start off by talking about what got you to that challenge, and that all centres around your dad, doesn't it? So shall we start off with, can you describe what was your dad like? What are your memories of your dad?
Oh, well, my dad was called Tim, so it's really important to say his name as well, because sometimes you talk about him without his name. So yeah, he's called Tim. He was actually premature. That's why they named him Tiny Tim. But he was actually he actually was enormous. Like, he was a rugby player and quite big. So I always find that quite funny. And he was amazing. He was like so funny. He was really good with like making things, and he loved old cars as well. I just like have amazing fond memories of him. Like he had an E-type Jag, and he put it was like kind of in a really bad condition, and he built it up and made it all look lovely, and he just was really good at like fixing things and stuff, and I loved like watching him like make model aeroplanes, and he was an amazing swimmer. He taught me how to swim, he taught me how to cycle, loved red wine, and he was just he loved people. He always lit up around people, and he was always like trying to make sure everyone had a good time, and he was a big hugger. Like, he was such a if he met someone, he was always like giving everyone a big hug, and called everyone sweetheart and lovely. It was just very it was great.
Oh, he sounds like an amazing man, and such lovely memories you have of him. Yeah. And I'm going to turn this to you now, because it is a sensitive topic, but are you happy to share about what happened with your dad and what you remember from that time? Yeah,
of course. And that's why I'm here, and that's kind of the basis of all of this. But thank you for asking me who he was first, because that is the most important thing. Because sadly, I did lose my dad died when I was 17 from suicide. Which, you know, as the person I just described, it doesn't seem to match up. And yeah, it was a big shock. I mean, he was getting ill. He was ill, but we just didn't know to that extent. And yeah, I think I always completely crushed my world and my family's world, and for a long time, life just felt very not quite right. It just didn't, if he was and I've said this a lot, that he was my dad, my protector, and I was like, if he didn't like this world and he didn't feel safe, then how could I? So yeah, big horrible loss. But well, there isn't really, but it was horrible. That's why I decided to try and help and make some sort of something out of it. Yeah.
And it's such a heartbreaking situation, and I think unless you've been through it yourself, you can't even really begin to understand and process what you went through and how you went through that. And a lot of people talk about reasons for suicide, and it may not be clear ever. And I think that's sometimes hard for people to comprehend. Is I may fully never understand why a person did that. But I read in one of the interviews that you did that your dad described it like being in a black hole and that he couldn't climb out. And did he talk about his feelings much with people around him?
So no, I mean, I sort of, I guess we were children, so they were
Yeah.
like, mum and dad were trying to kind of keep us away out of it. But I mean, I was sort of 16, 17 when he died, and I remember him saying it's come back, because I think he got bad and then it got okay again. Then he said, oh, it's come back again. And I just remember saying, I got really angry with him. I was like, why? Like, I don't understand, because we love you and you've got a nice life. And he just said, like, I don't fully understand. And he said it's, and I just remember him sort of trying to explain it to me, and he said it's like a black hole and I can't get out of it. And that kind of, I was like, that kind of made me, I don't know if I'll ever really know what it feels like, but at that moment I was like, oh wow, okay, like I get some idea.
Yeah. And it's just so horrible, isn't it, thinking of people being in that situation. And my story is by nowhere near the same, but I struggled with my mental health, and it did feel like that. It just felt like this black hole of and not understanding it. And people said the same to me. They were like, Jen, you've got a lovely life, a lovely family. And in myself, I was like, yes, I have, and I don't understand it. You just
and I think that makes it worse. I think that makes it worse when you're feeling all this guilt and all this like pressure, and I should be this and I should be that. And I think that actually adds to it, which it's that's why it's such an like crazy topic, because I think it makes it worse when you're like, oh, I should be feeling good and all this stuff.
But I think it's the thing that there's no right thing to say to support a person, is there? And things that you think might help, it may not help them, and it's working out the right way to word things. So as family, that's really challenging, because something that might feel right to you may not be right for them, as we say. And it's such a complex situation. And
oh my God, yes. And I think also it's that thing, like you said, like you don't want to say the wrong thing, so sometimes you don't say anything, and that's also not good either. So, and I think also it is very difficult with family, I think, and friends. And I think actually that's why I do think it is good to talk to people outside of your I mean, obviously it's good to talk to anyone, it's good to talk to your family, it's good to talk to friends, of course, I really advocate for all of that. But sometimes it is good to talk to a professional if you can, but also like that's why again I'm such a big advocate for like sporting groups, or like not necessarily sporting groups but communities, right, where you're going for a ride and you open up to someone a lot of the time that's not actually a good friend. It just sometimes it's easier to open up to kind of strangers, I find, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, because then there's no preconceived ideas or knowledge about who you are and what you should or shouldn't be doing. And it's sometimes that blank canvas can be really helpful, can't it?
Yeah. And I think families get so passionate in a good way, but sometimes you don't want to be like, you shouldn't be like this, you should be like this, and it's like it's
really, really difficult. And I know from my point of view, and we know about the NHS in the UK and how waiting lists are mammoth, and actually support there is quite limited. Did your dad manage to get support? Was it available?
I think it wasn't until it was too late. I think he and again, this is why I'm not, this is like pieces of information that I picked up, but I think he wasn't quite fully upfront to my mum about how bad he was feeling until he was like, and then they put him, I think what really messed my dad up was I think they put him on some really crazy medication too quickly, and they were changing it up, and it really made him bad. And It had suicidal effects. I know that apparently is quite common, but it just was like, I found that very strange. So, and sometimes for a while I was like, was it the medication? Because they didn't seem like they knew what they were doing, and it felt like that way. So someone came to visit him. He was having like therapy, but it was a different person every time. And I was like, how's my dad meant to open up to someone? He finds it, just felt so. And he said that, he was like, it's a different person each time. Like, how am I gonna? And then afterwards, this is something I found out later on, but there's a charity called SOB, Survivors of Bereaved by Suicide, and I didn't know that charity existed, and they apparently were around when my dad died, and I found all these things out actually recently, going back into the kind of mental health world. But when someone dies by suicide, you're meant to have like, the NHS is meant to send like someone over, like a kind of I don't know what you call them, but a support care person that's meant to help the family and help them with like support and advice, because there's quite a lot of legal stuff as well, to do with when someone dies by suicide. So, but we didn't have that help, and I think because we didn't know it was there, we didn't know to ask for it either. And it wasn't until actually now that I was like, oh, that's a service that even now people still are missing. So it's like, I'm like, how is this happening still? So, and that's when I get upset. But there is so much more, because I was so angry with the mental health system. I just kind of was like, I don't want to I don't want to have anything. I just, get me out, keep me away. But since kind of delving back into it, there's a lot that's still not quite right, but there are other ways. And that's the thing, is like, I think the reason why I did my ride, which I haven't even talked about, but I think the reason that was because I wanted to show that there's like other ways, I guess.
And there is support out there, and there's charities available that can help not only the person but the families and those trying to work with that person. And I was reading a statistic the other night that was saying that 1 in 4 adults experience mental health difficulties every year, and I think personally that number is potentially higher, because as you say, a lot of people don't talk about it, and like your dad, maybe don't share how extreme it is and how they are feeling. And so it is encouraging that conversation with even potentially people you don't know, but with those families or those charities, I think can make a world of difference there. And how did you cope with that? How did you keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going after it all happened?
It's a really interesting question, because, I don't really know. I think it was a lot of it was a blur. And I'm actually so grateful I have my siblings. I think, we were all going through our own grief. We all went through our own sort of depression as well. And I think actually we could have really and I think in a way each of us sort of spiraled a little bit in our own way, but we all managed to kind of pull each other back in. So I'm so grateful for them. And I didn't cope very well. I did go off the rails a little bit. I did, sometimes I'm like, was that just because I was a teenager? But I was like, no, I think a lot of it was, I quit uni, and I was just struggling. I couldn't quite, and a lot of I just couldn't get uni. Everything felt so irrelevant. Everything felt so, I just was like, what's the point? I just felt so, lost for a long time. But I think actually what helped me a lot was sport. And I actually try and say movement now, because I'm as soon as you say sport, right, people get a bit freaked out, and I'm like, it can be just going for a walk, right? I think that's the biggest thing. It was like when I felt really low myself, just getting outside and going for a walk, I was like, I felt the world of good. And I know that just for me, it cleared my I'm a massive overthinker, and I think it really just calms me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of research into the impact of sport, but I think the testimonies of everybody we've spoken to on this podcast and what you've been through, and it just really shows how, as you say, I think it's a lovely way to word it, of that movement is so helpful to your mental health and to medical needs and physical well-being, the whole shebang, really. So yeah, it's a big.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, me and my siblings, we've all got really crazy into sport or movement. Like my brother's an ultra runner, my sister's a crazy crossfitter. Like, I think we all went a bit crazy, and then actually, I think movement or being active really kind of like, focuses and sort of brought us down to earth a little bit.
I've been wearing Luca's cycling kit for around a year now, and it's genuinely benefited my training so much. Luca is a premium women's cycling wear brand created by women for women. Born from the frustration of ill-fitting gear and the outdated shrink it and pink it approach, Luca is here to set a new standard. For performance, for design, and for women, their pieces are made to move with you. Crafted in Portugal from high-performance Italian fabrics, tested by a community of female cyclists, and worn by GB athletes like Sian Rainsley. It's more than cycling wear. It's a movement towards empowerment, confidence, and redefining what women's sportswear should be. I've personally found Luca kit to be unbelievably comfortable, and particularly on those longer rides. But also, it looks amazing and is super functional. It really does motivate me to get out on my bike. As a listener of this podcast, you can use my code ToughestFinishLine to get a little something off your first order at rideluca.com. So coming on to that then, you set your challenge of cycling the whole coastline of the UK. Where did that come from? What made you decide to go for that?
So a few things. I think firstly, when my dad died, I really wanted to do something then, and I used to swim, and I was like, I'm gonna swim like the world or something, something ridiculous, the world, and that's classic me. And if I can't do anything massive, I was like, I was like, oh well, that's never gonna happen. And actually, I met this wonderful human called Zanny. And I met Zanny, who was riding a tandem to raise awareness of suicide. He lost his sister. And I didn't know Zanny. I'd never met Zanny before. And I saw it on social media. So, good old social media can sometimes be very good. And he actually was the one that introduced, it blew my mind. I think I had never opened up to anyone else really about how my dad died. It just kind of, that's a whole nother topic, but I think because suicide's such a difficult, it's got so much stigma, so much judgment, so much, it upsets, it takes over the room. You start talking about it and you can see people get upset because they're upset for you, and it's not, even with my friends, no one knows what to say. So it just became, just don't talk about it. And so when I met Zanny, it was like a safe space to talk about it, and I've never ever since Dad died had that. And it just he even said to me, he's like, wow, you're really you're really elated, you're really energized. I mean, I had a big crash the next day, but I was just like, I've never had this safe space to talk about it. And I kept saying to him, I wish I did this, I wish I did something like this. And he was like, you can. And that was completely planted the seed. I was going to do John O'Groats to Land's End because my mum did that a couple of years, when I was younger, so I thought, oh, that'd be a nice ode to her. But then I was like, well, I'm quite go big or go home, and I was like, I love the sea as well, so I was like, yeah, let's do the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. So let's get this right. You cycled the whole coastline of the UK on your own, which is it right? It's 3,500 miles.
Yeah. Well, so it was self-supported, but obviously a big goal of mine was I wanted to meet people along the way who had lost someone or had suffered with mental health themselves. So yeah, self-supported on my own, but with people joining me, and that actually picked up. It's so funny, like my, I really actually hated being on my own for the first kind of quarter, and then suddenly I picked up quite a lot of people, and then I really was craving being on my own, and then I luckily was on my own. And so yeah, it was a real funny experience, like being on my own, not being on my own, hating it on my own, loving it on my own. Yeah, it was funny.
Wow. And so, how did you? I mean, you touched on that you were a swimmer and that you've done bits and pieces before, but how do you train for an event like that? Where do you start?
Honestly, it's yeah, I like signing up to things. I love having like a goal and
Yeah.
like putting my, because otherwise I just won't train for something. Um, but I actually had read like quite a lot that you don't, the training is the event.
Yeah.
And so it was great because I was kind of like, oh, I'm off the hook. I don't need to train. But then like, but I wasn't, I was a cyclist. Like I love my bike, and I was on
Yeah.
my bike a lot, and it was, I was getting stronger all the time. And what a way to kick things off is doing Cornwall or Devon for sure, because that was definitely the hilliest
Right.
by far. So yeah, and but yeah, I wasn't. The most I'd ever bike pack though was like 2 or 3 nights, so that was quite a shock, and that was quite, yeah, that was quite a big thing. But luckily I didn't overthink that until I was on it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that. By the sounds of it, you just went right. I'm going to do this, and you just
Yeah.
set off.
Well, I sort of have to. I think with me, I am such an overthinker and worrier. I get in my head, and I think with this, it's been in the back of my mind for so long, and I knew that as soon as I just needed, and I had to, like, I remember making the decision, and I was like, I need to tell people before I freak out. And I remember like telling my mum. I sat down with my mum, and I think she was like, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, she was like, okay, sure. And I was like, yeah, I know. I could tell she was like, didn't really believe me. And then I remember telling my best friend, and she was like, gave me a big hug, and she was like, I'm so proud. And the more I did that, the more I was like, okay, this is becoming a thing. And then I told my job, and I was like, I'm gonna have to leave. I'm doing this thing, and that's when I was like, okay, this is real now.
Yes, I mean, quitting your job is a pretty big. We have to do this now.
Yeah,
Realization, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
did you
yeah.
have a set route that you were going, or was it
I
adapted
wish.
depending on who you met?
Well, no, I think for my own anxiety and my own, like, I had to plan it in advance, because it actually ended up being quite a big organized thing, because people were booking time off work to come and meet me, so I had to be quite, on it with like, okay, this is going to be my, where I'm going to be here on this day, so yeah, it was like I had to really, really try and plan it all in advance. But obviously, I would, there was awful days where I'd be like on a dual carriageway, and I was like crying my eyes out because I'm like, I should not be here. And so there's definitely adjusting as I went all the time, but the basis of it had to be done in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, and touching on that, on a dual carriageway, crying your eyes out, there must have been, we'll come on to the positive moments in a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
but there must have been some times where you, yeah, found it hard. Were there times where you thought, I just can't do this?
Yeah, a lot actually, and it's like, I think people are like shocked, or I'm maybe so honest about it. But yeah, there was loads. I mean, it was so wet for one. It was so wet. Like
Okay.
this summer, I was like, I should have done it this summer. It was so wet and so cold, and I got ill because I think like you're riding all day in the rain, and then you camp and you're getting wet, and just so I got really like ill, a
Yeah.
cold or something, and the cold and wet just really, really got me. And just day after day after day, just awful. So I remember being in Scotland, and they're like, "Oh, it's the wettest summer we've had in 17 years," and I'm like, Yeah. So yeah, the rain and the weather was a big one, and like getting ill off the back of that. And then I think I yeah got a horsefly bite that got infected. I had to stop riding. Had to go on antibiotics, um, and then my bike, without me being on it, but my bike got run over, and so I had to get a new bike.
No.
Day
Oh no.
six as well. Day six, my like I was just like, what is happening?
Did you see it happen
I finished day six, and it was Croyd, or was it? I think it was day six or day four, something like that, which was Croyd to Watch It, so Devon to Somerset, and it was actually my highest elevation day, like over 3,000 meters elevation, like um, big day. And I finished for the day, and I was getting picked up to go for dinner and get take to the campsite. So I was getting really happy about going out for dinner, and I was
Yeah.
waiting to get picked up. Got picked up, my bike got put in the van, and the van door wasn't closed properly, and my bike rolled out, and the van just rolled over my bike.
Oh
Um,
no.
and it was just one of those things, like, because I was also so tired. I was like, just standing, looking at my bike under the van, just being like, what, like, what? Like, and then, I was trying to call like mechanics, and but obviously everywhere was closed because I didn't finish till like 5 or 6 or whatever it was. And then I remember voice calling my friend who was in New Zealand, who was a mechanic, and he was like trying to look at the bike to see what was.
Oh my goodness.
And then it went, and then it not necessarily viral, but I put up so many messages about, can someone help me, and then loads of people were trying to help. It was such a love, like that's the
Oh.
big thing about this ride, was community, like just the people that rallied around, like strangers and stuff. Like I don't think I'll ever be able to say, and it gets me a bit upset sometimes, but I don't think I'll ever be able to say thank you to like people. Um, anyway, and then yeah, the next day I took it to a bike shop, and they were like, "Yeah, it's right off," and I was like, because I thought it was just going to be the wheel, and they were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right off," and I was like, "What?" And then obviously I was like crying my eyes out in the shop, and like they were like, "What?" And I'm like, "I'm doing a thing," and oh yeah, it was a day. And then luckily, they were like, "We've got a bike. It's basically the same as your one now. It's in the same
Oh,
size."
amazing. Wow. I
Yeah,
mean, the
it
chances
was
of that happening.
exactly. And then I think that day I was meant to be riding to Bristol that day, so I had like a really big day. And normally I start at 9, and obviously didn't sort of set off till like lunchtime, and then I rode like 10 or 15k in the wrong direction, which is the only
Oh
time I've
my
done it.
god.
Such a silly day. Yeah.
Oh, but to have that quite early on in the challenge
Yeah, yeah. And I think
is,
that then like really freaked me out. I was not in a
yeah,
good place after that, because then I was on my own, and I just remember being like, just anything can happen. I was just
yeah.
on edge. I was like, anything can happen, and I was just like, oh, my imagination is mental. Like, and I was just like, oh, people are going to jump out. People are going to get me. I'm going to get. Yeah, just honestly, I went from every extreme situation. I just really was not good for a while.
So
Um,
what kept
yeah,
you going at that point? Like what, when because you're having these thoughts, your bike's just got run over, you've ridden in the wrong direction. What kept you going?
honestly, I think it was why I was doing it. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm raising money, and yeah, it was like just that. It was the cause. It was such an important thing for me, and I think also for my own, for my dad, for raising awareness. I didn't want to let people down, but also for me, like I think, and I don't know if this is from dad or whether I'm just like this anyway, but I've always been like, just always been a bit of a scaredy cat. Like I've just not gone for stuff. I've always been overthinker. I've always thought I was not good enough. I was, don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I was like, oh, I can't do that. No, I won't be good enough for that. I won't be good enough for that. And that's why this ride was so important on so many levels, because I think because I had the goal was to do it for mental health and suicide of my dad, I sort of, it took it away from about me, if that makes any sense. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like, can I do this and should I do this? It was like, no, you're doing it because of them. You're doing it for
Yeah.
them. You're doing it for a cause. You're doing it, there's a bigger thing right now. And so and then suddenly I'm like, wow, you're doing this thing, Katie. Like, you are. And that was a big reason to keep going. So I was like, this is a big deal for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So no matter what rain came your way, you were not stopping for anybody.
Oh, I mean, I definitely had moments. My sister, actually, and it's me and my sister, we've always sort of butted heads when we were little, but she honestly, like, just had my back so much on that ride, and she just kept saying to me, like, because we've sort of got opposite brains. Like, she's very pragmatic, she's very just, and she was like, get to this point and then make a decision. And so I'd always like, get to this point, and she'd be like, how was it? And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, okay, and then get to the next point. And so she was really good at, and she came to meet me as well. I think when I got really scared and shaky, she came to meet me in Wales, which is where Dad's family are from, and so that was and a lot of our family holidays and stuff. So that was quite a lovely moment. So, and other people, like, it's I can't even tell you that I would be like feeling scared, lonely, all of that, and then a little old man would like feed me or invite me into his home for a cup of tea, or just like the most beautiful people. Like, yeah, honestly, just that's what was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. It's that supportive community, isn't it, that just get you through no matter what. And
Yeah.
I said I was going to ask about the toughest times, but also are there some standout favourite memories of that ride? And I imagine, are some of them the people you met? Is there a standout favourite moment, or too many to choose from?
There's too many, and I think it really was like just the people. Like, even when it always gets me emotional, because it's just people that have absolutely no idea who I am, or they've only just met me, only just heard about me. And I think it's also made me realise, because I've never spoken so much about suicide and mental health, people would ask me, what are you doing it for? And I'd have to say, and that was quite hard sometimes, because I found it so difficult to even, if people asked how, I just never told people how Dad died. So it was like, a big thing to overcome. But then so many people were like, I've gone through that, or I've lost, I was hugging. I remember being at a campsite must have been Scotland, and me and this lady who owned the campsite, we were just hugging, just having a little cry and hugging, because, she'd lost, I think it was her dad as well. And because you would never know that. You'd never know that.
No, and that's the thing. So many people don't talk about it, do they? And it's almost this taboo subject that can't be spoken about. And I get it, because it's hard to know what's the right thing to say and how to respond. But when you do start talking about it, it's amazing how many people have been touched in some way or another by suicide, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think that's why I wanted to do it like this, because I had that amazing experience with Zanny, where I was like, oh my God, I've never been able to talk about it so openly. And I was like, I want that. I want people to have that experience. I want this to be okay. I want it to be like a green light of like, I'm doing this right, please come and talk to me about any of this topic. And I think that people were like, oh wow, like, I want to.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, I loved your story so much, because it was all about you just wanting to help others and support others who were going through maybe what you went through. And I love the idea of you just meeting so many people along the whole of the UK and helping them and supporting them. And so how long did it take you in the end?
So, and I love this, because actually it's nearly been a year of me finishing. So I finished, it took me from June, and I think I finished on the 24th of August, 25th of August, something like that. So just under 3 months, like 78 days, I think.
Wow. A long time still, though, to be out on your own in the soaking weather and the rain and the wind. And so what did it feel like crossing that finish line? Did you have people meet you at the finish line? What was it like?
I actually, it's actually a really strange finish, because I think I actually didn't want it to end. So like the first half, or maybe the three quarters, I don't, I just wasn't enjoying it, and I was like, I can't do this, it's too hard, and all this stuff. And then pretty much after I passed halfway, I was like, oh my god, I don't want this to end. Like, oh my god, I'm going home. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. Because I felt for the first time, I don't want to be too dramatic, but it just felt like I was doing something. I was actually helping, and I felt so helpless. And I just felt I just didn't want it to end, and I didn't want to go back to normal life, not talking about it. I wanted to keep talking about it. I wanted people to keep joining me, and I was like, I want to keep helping, and also I keep saying I help. This, I really want to stress that, like, and as cheesy as this sounds, like, they helped me. It was like a really beautiful. I was like, oh, I'm definitely helping, and then I was like, no, I think actually, like, they're helping me just as much.
But it's
Anyway,
that
sorry, but
two-way
yeah,
thing, isn't it?
yeah.
It's that two-way. You're getting things from it as much as you're helping other people. It's your healing
Oh,
and processing time as well, isn't
100%.
it?
And I think that's why we end up helping each other so much, because I think actually it is that really beautiful, I want to say symbiotic, but I don't know, it's just a very powerful thing when you both need it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think, sorry, to answer your question, crossing the line. So I felt like I really didn't want it to be over, and
Yeah.
so I felt actually very emotionally drained. Like, I think I was very numb. I actually, when I imagined finishing on my bikes, I remember being in Scotland thinking about finishing and crying and feeling quite emotional about finishing. When I got to the finish, I was just like, I had no emotion. It was just so bizarre. My poor friends and family. I was just there like rabbit in headlights, like just, completely. And then, yeah, and then it was afterwards was really hard. I
Yeah.
felt quite blue.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk about it, don't they? That you put your whole heart and energy into training or a big event, and it's the post-event blues, which are really hard to get through. And was there anything that helped you at that time? Did you start planning for another event, or?
No, I had to. I was really in desperate need of a job. So I was like, I just need
Right.
to like put more of my energy and focus into finding a job. But it's ironic. I kept having to have really big chats with myself about what preach what you teach, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I was being really grumpy. And I just was like, community, like, actually the biggest help for me was starting my cycle club. Like, I had my friends own a gym, and they were like, Jolly Sailor gym, and they said, do that thing. And I was like, no, like I always do, like, oh no, people won't come, or whatever. And then they're like, do it. And actually it got me. I had to plan a route every Sunday. And I was with people, and I was, so everything that I was preaching, I was like, oh yeah, this works.
It does work.
It does work. Like, talking to people and riding bikes, and just being with people, and it just was like, that was a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think it is that, just keep talking, keep pushing yourself, and it's hard, isn't it? When you are struggling, it's so much easier to throw a duvet over your head and just hide away. But if you can, just even stepping out the front door and getting some fresh air can make a whole load of difference,
Yes.
can't it?
Oh my. Oh, the world of good. Like, and actually, I think that's why it was so good, because I had to go, because I was like, I'm running this. And I think that's why clubs and stuff are quite good, or community groups, or whatever, because you're like, there's a set day and a set time, and you said you're going to go, so you're going to go, and so that is kind of like accountability. And I always loved it when I'm there, but it's just that like initial like,
Yeah. And the kind of psyching yourself up to get there, isn't it, is
Yeah.
often really hard.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, it just sounds like such an adventure, and one where you have definitely touched so many people's lives, and
They
it's
touch mine.
yeah, and that's the thing is you get something back in return from it, don't you? And I love that
Yeah.
you've kept on talking about suicide and supporting, because it is such an important topic. And as we said, the support out there is quite limited, and so it's amazing what you're doing, and keep sharing that message. And I'm just going to finish thinking about, and I know this is a really hard question, but is there some advice that you would give someone? I know we've spoken about getting out there and meeting with people, but is there any other advice that you would give to somebody, potentially family members like you were, who may be affected by suicide?
Oh my gosh, there's lots out there. I think for families that have lost someone, there is help specifically for families, and I would go out and look for that help. Which is, there's charities like SOBS, but there's also so I would look into to that, and I'd never heard of them before. So and I also didn't know this existed, and I think this might be a new thing, but there's so Mind, they do specifically people who have been left behind, groups. They do like hope walks, which is really good. Yeah, so there are I think, look into those charities. Papyrus is a young suicide prevention charity, but they have a hope line, which actually could be whatever age you want. Whatever age you want, you could be whatever age, but you can ring up and ask them for some advice on like work. So you can say, look, like, I want to put these I want to help people at work, or I want to have some support. What do I need? So they're really good for giving some sort of like advice. And also, if you're worried about someone, you can call Papyrus, or you can Samaritans. I haven't had much to do with Samaritans, but I know that they could do that. So there is lots out there. It's just, you need to kind of look through it. And I think sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming. But I think also, a big thing I learned, so sorry, this isn't really necessary for families that are left, but now I'm moving on to helping people that are struggling. I did a course called an assist course, and I would recommend everybody should do it, because it's about how to deal with someone that's really in a bad way, like they want to take their own life. And I think for me, there was a bit of stigma about asking someone outright, like, are you thinking of taking your own life? And I think that stigma, we need to remove that, because actually asking someone it can take a massive weight off their shoulders, because if they say yes, then that's actually a big relief for them, and you can then help. And I think also not saying things, which is something I was quite shocked about, but the language we use is really important, by saying not saying things like, don't do that, think of your family, but this and this. They know that they already feel guilty, and that's, so you're making it worse in a way. So actually saying, I understand, and just listening and going, what can we do to keep you safe now? So that was really a lot of key learnings from that. It was pretty powerful.
So what course was that? Where did you do that?
So it's called an assist, so ASIST, assist, and in Cornwall it's called the Orange Button Scheme, because it's a scheme that like, I think they want to help more people do that course. And I sort of like, if I do a talk, I'll wear my orange button, which just means I'm able to kind of, if someone's not feeling great and they want to talk to someone, I'm able to talk to them.
It's knowing that these charities and these places are out there, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people have heard of places like the Samaritans, but there is so much more, and for the families who may be struggling with it and going through it, which I think they're often, they think that there is support out there for them personally.
100%. Again, the NHS, there are systems, or they're meant to come and see the families afterwards, and I think there's a big disconnect in the NHS, and that's not always happening. So it's there is help out there. Yeah, and talking, getting counselling and talking. I think finding groups, finding communities. There's stuff out there. Just about looking for it.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned some links there, so we'll make sure we get the links and put them in the comments and in the notes sections with this podcast to hopefully support others who might be going through similar to what you went through. And Katy, I just want to say a huge thank you, because it's a challenging topic for you, but it's just opening that conversation, and I know it's going to help so many people who might be going through similar to what you went through. So thank you for being so open.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thank you for being so lovely and having such a lovely chat, because I know it sounds weird, but it means a lot to me to be able to keep talking about it, and especially with someone that's like, you're a big athlete and you've been going through the dark times yourself, so it means a lot that you can share it as well. So yeah,
we will keep spreading the word, definitely.
Yeah.